want you to feel, I want you to feel something crazy, crazy, amazing.
Hey friends, welcome to the Crazy Amazing Humans podcast. I'm Katrina Carlson.
And I'm Jefferson Denim. As always, we're here to celebrate the people who use their time, talents, and resources to make the world a better place.
Today, we're thrilled to welcome a mother-daughter duo whose stories and expertise embody our ethos in all the ways, and they do it with both resilience and wisdom. And they're on a mission to help all of us discover and embrace our Joyspan. Now, we've all heard of Lifespan, but get ready because they're here to introduce us to something possibly even more meaningful, our Joyspan. And I personally cannot wait to hear all about this.
Hey, Katrina, you think we might have time to talk about my waist span? I might need some help with that.
Jefferson, that'll be the next podcast. How's that?
Got it.
Okay. So Dr. Kerry Burnight has dedicated over 30 years to gerontology. She was a professor at UC Irvine's School of Medicine. She co-founded the nation's first elder abuse forensics center, and she's now sparking a global revolution to make older better. She's done with the fear-driven anti-aging bias, and she has a proven approach to navigating longevity based upon a profound truth, really. And that is that the key to meaningful longevity isn't about the length of your life, it's about the quality of your life.
Right. And along with Dr. Kerry, we also have her daughter, the future doctor, Claire Burnight. The apple does not fall far from the tree, obviously. Claire is studying to become a doctor of naturopathic medicine. A little background for everybody. In her 20s, Claire faced a shocking misdiagnosis that turned out to be a rare brain tumor, an experience that has deeply influenced how she approaches health, healing, and preventative care. And you're not going to want to miss what she has to say. So together, Dr. Kerry and Claire represent something we're very excited to talk about today. How we can expand not just our lifespan, but our joyspan, the vitality, health, and meaning we carry from our 20s into our 80s and beyond.
Very cool. So Kerry and Claire, thanks for being with us on the Crazy Amazing Humans podcast today.
We're delighted to be here.
Happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you both so much for making time for us. So, Dr. Kerry, let's start with you. Now, you've spent decades teaching and practicing gerontology. Could you share a bit about your journey, what drew you to this field, and help us understand why gerontology has been so important to you and why it should matter to all of us?
Well, it is the one thing that we're all doing. Every one of us right this moment is aging. And when I got into the field 30 years ago, my whole emphasis was on essentially people who were suffering the most. So thousands and thousands of people with such suffering and loneliness and hunched over in wheelchairs, people who had been taken advantage of and financially exploited or endured neglect. And what I realized was it doesn't have to be this way. There are things that we can do today that will impact the trajectory of these long lives. And that's what we're going to explore in this podcast. And I'm just delighted and I'm honored too to have my daughter who is really the next generation. And it's very hopeful.
That's amazing, for sure.
That's beautiful. Okay, so your book is called Joyspan. And I'm wondering, what do you mean by joy? I mean, some people, myself included, could look at that word and think you might mean something, Pollyanna-ish, not tethered to reality, which I know you don't mean. So can you share what Joyspan means to you and why you felt compelled to coin this term and write this book?
Yes. So as you mentioned in the intro, that lifespan has been around since the 1800s, how long we live, and it matters. Healthspan, more recently in the 1980s, is how long we enjoy good health. That too matters. But I have patients who live a long life, even a long life in good health, but are not enjoying their lives. And that's where Joyspan comes in. So the word joy, as defined by the American Psychological Association, is well-being and life satisfaction. It is not, and in fact, it is the opposite of toxic positivity. Because joy, as as understood as contentment and stepping into these lives, it's also different from happiness, because happiness is very circumstantially dependent. Our happiness goes up and down all day long, whereas joy, because it is inside out and internally cultivated, joy can exist and often does exist in the very hard and challenging times, which makes it perfect for longevity, because I don't know any long life that doesn't have change and challenge.
That's incredible. I love that. And so I want to turn to Claire. So Claire, before we get to your incredible story, for those in our audience who are younger, even in their 20s, like you, do you think it's important to embrace the concept of Joyspan? And if so, why and how?
I think it's especially important for people in their 20s to start embracing something like the concept of Joyspan, because I feel like so much of this decade is spent chasing that promotion, that relationship. I feel like with chasing never comes enough. You know, we're told that joy is something that waits for us at the end of achievement. And what I think and what Joyspan has taught me is that joy is the signal that we are actually in alignment. And I think for people in their 20s, this is a powerful shift. Instead of asking, what do I want to do? You could ask, how do I want to feel? And I think when you orient your life around that question, purpose starts to find you and joy can become your compass. I think Joyspan isn't just important. I do think it's transformational. And I'm so lucky to have my mom as my teacher and North Star in teaching me that.
It's really evident that you all are related. It's amazing. Yeah. Well done, Mom.
And Katrina, I'm already making mental notes. Toxic positivity. What a phrase. I love that phrase. And Claire, from what you just shared too, you can be in your 20s, you can be in your teens, you can be in your 90s, and chasing after things that society tells you you absolutely need, versus, as Katrina and I were going through the book, it seems like it's like developing your inner voice to decide what is most important to you from within, it seems to me. So Claire, as Katrina said, your story is definitely incredible and powerful. Can you walk us through what happened from the misdiagnosis to finally discovering you had a brain tumor and how that changed the way you think about your own health?
So I feel like that diagnosis completely changed everything in my life. So I'll walk you through the story. So I was all set to attend medical school last summer, and I put my deposit down. I was all ready to go, but I had been hearing this pulsing sound in my ear. It sounded like a whooshing that was constantly going on in my ear. So I made an appointment at the ear, nose, and throat doctor and went in, and he really just brushed me off and diagnosed me with eustachian tube dysfunction without even looking at my ear, really talking to me. Just within a few minutes said, "Oh, you're young and healthy. You just have eustachian tube dysfunction." So I thought I had that for 4 months and it still hadn't gone away. So I felt just something in my gut telling me I need to get a second opinion. So I went to a different doctor, and immediately she said, you have to get an MRI of your brain and neck. And so I anxiously waited that week, and I was out at dinner with my brother when I got the call from the doctor, and I could immediately tell by her tone that something was wrong. And that's when they diagnosed me with an acoustic neuroma, which is a rare brain tumor that is on your vestibular cochlear nerve. So it affects hearing and balance. And they referred me to neurosurgeons. And yeah, I really feel like this diagnosis did just completely change the way I look at everything in a good way. I feel like when you have something this huge, at least this was huge for me. I had never really had any big medical diagnosis. They said that I needed to have surgery and postpone medical school. So one day I am set to attend medical school. The next day I have a brain tumor and I can't go to medical school. So this was definitely a huge period of transition for me. But I do think that I was able to still find joy. And actually, I felt a lot of joy in that time, which might sound odd to say, but it truly made me realize it is an inside job. And the ability to, like in my mom's book, Joyspan, it's connect, grow, adapt, and give. I feel like it was just the catalyst for me being able to do that. And I got to meet incredible people with the same diagnosis. I got to share my story on social media that really resonated with a lot of people. it humbles you and asks you to slow down to your body in a new way. I feel like it completely changed the way I understand healing and a diagnosis, because even though I had this big diagnosis, I still felt very healthy and vibrant. And I shifted my mindset to thinking, okay, but look at what remains in my life. I feel healthy otherwise. I have my incredible family. I am able to stay with my family, move back in with my parents at the age of 24. And that really helps me get through that time.
That is a beautiful story. And I just have to say, incredible resilience. And that is a foundation. I think that your mom here, Dr. Kerry, definitely must have helped you, as well as you dug deep and you know what these concepts are. And it's really inspirational. And that's why we were so drawn to both of you and how you all approach life. It's so important. Everyone gets things thrown at them, and you got it thrown at you very young. So just to ask Dr. Kerry, as a physician and as a mom, what has it been like to watch your daughter navigate this?
It was humbling because as we are getting older, I'm 56, it's good, I know, to let ourselves understand that we're going to get things happening like with our diagnoses or our chronic or vision or hearing changes or losing our parents. But what I hadn't opened my mind to is our children and then ultimately our grandchildren also have life events. So at first, I was locked in the oh, this can't be right. Not this healthy young daughter. And it was Claire who helped me learn that no, nobody's exempt from these kinds of things. This is life, and it isn't something that can't happen, and it does happen. And I just learned so much really from Claire and watching her navigate her path. So all the credit goes to Claire.
Well, we do. We learn from our kids, don't we? And that is a beautiful thing. I mean, it's a definite give and take. What a privilege it is to have children and learn from them, our lessons, right? So has it influenced, you're a doctor, you're a medical doctor, and, being a professor in medical school. Did it influence the way you think about medicine at all, or healthcare or prevention, anything like that?
Well, it did, in that Claire was on track to go to traditional medical school, which we are both all for and is great and has a great place. But she, in her exploration, and she could talk about this, is then thought about prevention and naturopathic medicine and a more holistic approach, and ended up then changing from going to one medical school to a naturopathic medical school, which, yes, really opened my eyes. And I have so much to learn, and because I do believe so much in prevention. So yes, it changed me radically.
Wow. That's really cool.
That's a great segue then. So Claire, how did that your experience, shape your decision to study naturopathic medicine? Do you feel like it, gave you a different lens on diagnoses, treatment, let's say prevention, as we were just talking about?
Yes, absolutely. I think that diagnosis completely changed everything in my life. I use the analogy of it was like the Lego blocks that built up who I thought I was just completely crumbled, and out emerged this new version of myself. And I really, through this experience, I have always been passionate about holistic medicine and nutrition and prevention. And I knew that's what I wanted. That's the path I wanted to take. But I thought that I had to do the MD route and then study that after medical school. But having this pause of after my diagnosis, I was just home and I had to defer my medical school acceptance. I was forced to, but I really feel like it was divine intervention. Like it was the universe just shifting me a little bit on my path and saying, oh, here you go. And I really think I stopped seeing illness as something wrong and started seeing it as a communication. I would say as the body's way of asking for alignment, for care, for reconnection. And I feel like I reconnected to my soul's purpose. And that shift is really what led me to naturopathic medicine. And it's the path that honors the body's intelligence and looks at the whole person, the mind, body, and spirit. So yes, it completely changed my lens. And diagnosis became less about labeling a problem and identifying with this problem and more about understanding the story. And to me, like, prevention became presence, and learning to live in a way that supports balance was huge for me. Like, listening to these symptoms instead of just slapping a Band-Aid on them, which conventional medicine often does. We diagnose and treat. Whereas in naturopathic medicine, these symptoms are our body's way of crying out for help, and really tuning into those. And I feel like so often people will go to the doctor and say, I don't feel well. Like, I have no energy. Something is not right. And then they'll do your blood test. It will come back and the doctor says, nope, you're all good. And to me, that, like, you're not good. And even if it's a subclinical level. And so what I've found so far in my naturopathic medical education is that, like, we care about that subclinical level of not feeling well, because that's what can cause serious disease in the long run.
Ooh, well, that is a lot to think about. And we have someone in our family with a chronic illness that is that
subclinical,
has a subclinical situation. And so that really hits home. So thank you for that.
So you said that sometimes you go to the doctor and they say you're all fine. But on the other side of the coin is they say, oh, here's a list of meds I want you to start taking, and foist that on you, which may or may not be helpful. And so the fact that you're offering something naturopathic, I think, as my daughter would say, Dad, it's yes and. So you can have a little bit of both, but listening to your intuition and your inner voice, right? Isn't that what you're kind of saying to guide you a bit?
Yes. And another kind of tenet of naturopathic medicine is do no harm and do the least possible intervention. So with conventional medicine, often they start right away with a high force, like a very powerful drug that has a lot of side effects. And something that is very interesting that totally has reshifted my perspective on side effects is that they're actually not side effects. Like, those are just the effects of the medicine. I feel like side effects is a way for the doctor to get away with causing these other symptoms. And so then you might be put on all these medications, and the initial thing that you went into the doctor for goes away, but then now you have all these other side effects. So in naturopathic medicine, we really try to use just the least force, which is often, plants, which actually 40% of pharmaceuticals come from plants. So we try to use them in their whole form, or even just starting with the determinants of health, because that truly is the foundation, which is sleep, nutrition, connection, sunlight, gratitude. Like, these are all so important for our health.
Ooh, I love that. Oh, I'm going to write those down. Yeah, that sounds like a good plan to follow. I love that. Also, I can't help but think of those commercials where they say, "Oh, use this drug," and then they go, "Side effects," or the blah, 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 and I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's insane." So yes, you are heard. You are heard with that. Turning to Dr. Kerry. So as a gerontologist, you've seen firsthand what helps people age with vitality and what doesn't. So that's kind of what we're talking about with Claire. Like, how are we're all aging, right? That's what you were saying at the beginning. We're all on this road. No matter how old we are aging. Your book focuses on how to maximize the second half of your life. So if you could offer, let's say, 3 pieces of advice to someone in their 50s or 60s on how to build a healthy and fulfilling life for the decades ahead, what would you tell them?
Okay, I would start right out with number 1 is we really need to address how we're thinking about growing older. Since we've been little kids, we've been fed this messaging. For example, Hansel and Gretel. So the ugly old witch comes out and then she's going to eat the children. And then we say, "Good night, kids." So we have this messaging of what old is. And then on top of that problematic foundation, we have a multi-billion-dollar anti-aging industry that profits off our fear and self-loathing. So it's profitable for us to be thinking it's not okay to age. But the reality is, from working with thousands of older people and from really studying research on growing older, that decline aging mindset that everything is getting worse is simply not true, and it is damaging. People who hold those beliefs that it's all this downhill slide live on average 7.5 years shorter than those who have stepped into an understanding of older as an opportunity for continued growth. So when you have, and I say when, not if, because all of us are in this society that tells us, so when you have this internalized ageism and you, let's say, look in the mirror and lament all the lines on our neck or think, oh, replace that. So, like it's cognitive behavioral therapy. You replace that thought with a true thought, which is, of course, there are lines on my neck. That's because I made it to look around, and I've been around for a long time, and that's not a bad thing. And when we think, oh no, old, I think, like recently Helen Mirren was interviewed, and the interviewer was trying to compliment her by saying, oh, you're not old. And she just stopped and said, I am old. I'm in my 80s, and I am delighted to be this age. Old is not a bad thing. And in fact, the research shows us that many things get better as we get older. We don't care as much what people think about us, which is liberating, and it continues on as we get older. So I'm only 56 now, but I can't wait to be 96, to be a better version of myself than I am right now in the things that matter, right? Not in the meat sack part, not in sprinting, but in the things that matter at the end of the day. So also as we get older, we appreciate our connections and friendships, and we're able to pull in people that are our people and that we cheer for and that they cheer for. We understand more about spirituality and about the importance of nature and art and beauty. We have a greater humility, and that is, I think, what our nation is really lacking. So if we could harness the collective power of 10,000 more of us turning 65 every day, I think we could really save society. And so instead of conceptualizing it as a tsunami with all these old people, it's like, no, it's us. And we're stepping into this with capitalizing on these strengths to save society, right? So that's step one, is to change this stinking, inaccurate, damaging, inflammation-provoking thought that old is bad.
I love that. Thank you. Get rid of old is bad.
And you'll have to catch yourself every day because it is very pervasive. But once you stop, you'll start to hear other people saying, oh, I don't know where my car is. It's such a senior moment. And then you look, you don't know where your car is. Often in your 20s, 30s, 40s, it's not a senior moment. You were thinking about something else, or you were on your phone when you parked. It's not the beginning of the end of your mind. And in fact, thinking that you're going to lose your memory hurts your memory. As we get older, so I'm going to go to number 2. So number 2 is, I would ask your listeners to picture the best possible future you. Picture right now, you are 96 years old. What is that person like? Think about, what are you wearing? Who are you with? What are you doing? Because by putting our head in the sand, like, oh, just don't think about getting older, you're not doing yourself any favor. But picturing this strong, vital, sharp, hilarious, spiritual, gorgeous person that you are, then you unconsciously are working toward that. And so it's the opposite of not thinking about it. Think about it and craft what that person is going to be like. That was number 2. And the last thing is making sure that you're working on your internal strength as much, if not more, as you work on your external strength. So externally, many of us are working on the big 4. The big 4 are cardiovascular health, strength training, flexibility, and balance training. Those are great. Start as early as you can and keep yourself as strong as you can. But what are you doing on this internal strength? Well, the good news is there are 4 equally research-based elements that you should know and be working on every day. And those 4 are grow, connect, adapt, and give. And so in the book Joyspan, I go through the science on each of those. But for these purposes, suffice it to say that the reason you need to continue to grow is that humans are hardwired for continued growth. And we need to keep diving into things that are hard and uncomfortable and new and interesting and scary and funny and weird and dangerous. Like, keep after it all the way up until that last breath. With connection, loneliness is as damaging as smoking 14 cigarettes a day. If you are not proactive in your friendships, you will not have the support you need for this 100-year life. So you need to be that friend who makes the plans, who offers to drive someone to chemo, who remembers that it's been 2 years since your friend's father's passing, right? That proactive friend who also has friends of all ages, because a lot of times we outlive our friends. So go for it with friends who are younger, because they will benefit from you being a little older, and you'll benefit as well. With adapt, know that hard stuff is going to happen. It's not wrong. It's not a mistake. A lot of times people will say, if my partner or I die, and I take their hands and say, my darling, when? It is when. It's going to be one of you. And that is not morbid. That's how it happens. And so when your partner passes, how are we going to be okay with internal strength, with joy? And then the final one is giving. And giving taps into the purpose literature. Holding all variables constant, people who say they have a sense of purpose have different inflammation and antiviral load than those who feel like they don't have a purpose. And purpose is little. It is not solving cancer or all these biggies, although that would be too. It's seeing you have lemons in your backyard, picking the lemons, going next door to your neighbor. Hi, I have these lemons. That starts a conversation. That gives you your role. And then it kind of builds because you recognize, I, in my 90s, have so much to offer. And I can listen, I can laugh, I can give advice, I can dance, you have so much to offer. But with ageism, you don't know that you have a lot to offer. And so you stop offering it. So that goes us back to the first tip. You got to change your thinking surrounding longevity.
That is all amazing, amazing advice. Thank you. And researched and knowledge you have garnered over decades. And,
turns out when you think about something for 30 years, it's a good thing.
Yeah, thank you. We are benefiting from that. So I'm loving that. I am going to go back and make sure to watch this and write everything down. I'm going to put signs on my mirror with your advice. And of course, your book, Joyspan, has all of this great advice, and Jefferson's holding up the book in.
And the thing about the book is that I put the workbook inside the book. So there's all these joy practices and self-assessments and exercises. And I have the story of Claire and her incredible journey and all that we learned, because I was writing the book when Claire had her brain tumor diagnosis. And when people ask, what age is this for? As early as possible. So I have a lot of readers in their 20s, 30s, 40s, but also never too late. I have a patient now who is 97, who has just picked up Joyspan, and she said she's making some of these changes, and it is positively impacting her life. So never too early, also never too late.
Okay, you keep making me want to cry, by the way. So this is beautiful. And I have a mother in hospice right now. So it's a lot to hear about this. So this is very relevant for me. And I did have in my notes to ask you about, like, how would you alter your advice for someone in their 20s and 30s, if at all? So would you have anything to say to that?
I love the fact that what improves our joy and our experience from ages 26 to 27 is the same that improves it from 86 to 87. So I think, like, for young people, go ahead and dive in. And they will, as you've seen with Claire, like, we want the next generation to be ahead of us. And so I look forward to these people who come behind us not having all this baggage. So there was a time where they said women can't be in leadership positions and they can't vote. And now we just think how ridiculous that is. And yet the same thing when we say older people can't do this or you're too old for this or that. My hope is that Claire and Claire's children will think, oh, how ridiculous that is. You know, we're going to be the change now, but so are those who come behind us. And that's the legacy that we give. If we can show people just the great beauty that comes along with the great challenges.
Awesome.
That is so beautiful. So I'm picturing myself at 95. I think I'm going to be wearing roughly the same thing. Just my thong will be a different size, probably. But I did want to overshare it. So what I was going to say was I do a lot of volunteering in the mental health arena. I love that you mentioned cognitive behavioral therapy. And one of the things that we talk a lot about with NAMI is that thought challenge. Redirecting your thoughts, grabbing a hold of your thoughts, and you can actually challenge them and say, I'm going to make a different thought going forward. I love that reminder. Thank you for that. So Claire, from your perspective and naturopathic training, what are some tools or practices that you would recommend to people in their 20s or 30s or older to build a strong foundation, health-wise, Joyspan-wise, so that they're thriving decades later?
It's a great question. It's tough to narrow it down, and I feel like people aren't going to like to hear this, but if I could offer one practice, it would be to find stillness every day. And young people and people of all ages, we are inundated with constant stimulation on social media, just in life. Like, it has gotten to a point where we are just constantly stimulated. And so finding stillness, where that could just be stepping outside, taking your shoes off, standing in the grass, watching the sunrise, watching the stars, feeling gratitude for this exact moment, for the miracle that you even exist. I think life really becomes more resilient, more joyful, more purposeful when we have this practice. And when, I feel like shutting out the noise of this one supplement will fix you, or you need to do this protocol. And I really think when we're able to scale that back a little bit and find stillness, we can actually intuitively know what we need. And I feel like this really allows ourselves to be more in relationship with ourselves and the world around us, and truly can cause some profound healing. At least this is what I've experienced in my life and seen in patient settings as well.
That resonates. I think that people are starting to understand that, don't you, Jefferson? And and this idea of going into nature, or going and grounding yourself and those kinds of things. That is such good advice. I was so excited to hear what you were going to say. You're like, I have one piece of advice. So stillness. That's amazing. And so, you are speaking to the younger generations, and we're wondering, how are how's your generation, or around your age, how are they embracing or resisting the idea of aging? Is it something your peers talk about? Is it still seen as something you just want to avoid thinking about?
I feel like it's still, that resistance is still very much so there. And I feel like people are so focused on the external, and people are getting baby Botox in their 20s. And, I really am so focused on the physical. And it is important, like my mom was saying, to make sure you're working out and eating healthy. Like, that is hugely important for how you age. It is the internal job. And I don't think it's much better in our generation. Or what I've seen is that the anti-aging industry is actually still growing. So hopefully with Joyspan, and I would love to be a voice in the pro-aging revolution. And I personally think it would be such an honor to grow old. And I hope, and I feel like my diagnosis of the brain tumor, of, potentially facing a life-threatening tumor or surgery, really put into perspective of what a privilege it is to age, because a lot of people aren't offered that.
Oh my gosh, what a great phrase. It's a privilege to get older. I love that. Katrina and I were talking earlier. both she and I have been actors. We're musicians, performers. And about 10 years ago, I was getting new headshots done. And before he showed me the results of the headshots, he said, now, Jefferson, I got to tell you something. This is how you look. What I mean by that is you've been getting headshots since you were in your 20s. You're not going to look like you're in your 20s. You're going to look like how you look now. And he gave me such a gift. I'm like, yeah, of course. This is who I am now. So, Dr. Kerry, and now you've touched on a few things. So are there any other habits or mindsets that you've seen that make a big difference in how people can accept themselves aging?
Yes, I think we could switch the question. The old question is how not to age. And if you really think about that, that is not the correct question because we are aging. So I think if we could then instead say how to age with vitality and beauty and relevance and strength and connection, right? So that we're really leaning into it. And so when people say, for example, they'll say to somebody that I'll know who's in her 90s, they'll say, you look so good for your age. And so I'm working with her to say, you don't need to say for your age. I just look good. Or when somebody says, oh, you don't even look 47. And you can say, this is what 47 looks like, right? It is a shift of ownership that embraces this current iteration of ourselves. And I think it would really go a long way in just changing what we do. And from that stems a lot of things, because when you're valuing yourself, then you're saying, it matters the quality of food that I put in my body. It matters that I get moving every day. Like the world's not going to end if I go out and exercise. It matters that, like, look, I got to sleep and I got to figure out what is keeping me awake and fix it. So like valuing our older selves, I think also will really impact the physical aspects of aging.
Beautifully said. Oh my goodness. That's great.
You know, I just realized something. If anybody wanted to follow your journey, find your book, Dr. Kerry, or Claire, follow you and your journey. And Claire, let me start with you. If people wanted to follow your journey, how could they do that?
Yeah, so I have an Instagram and it's called Integrative Claire. It started as me posting about my brain tumor, but now is shifting more towards what I'm learning in school. And so I'll be posting there.
Fantastic.
And then Dr. Kerry, how do we follow you?
On Instagram, it's _gerontologist. And so I talk about things, but what is most interesting is that I feature older people who are living lives that we would like to. So one person that I feature a lot is my 96-year-old mother who lives independently and who is just really practices Joyspan. And so she gets millions of people watching those videos, which has been a fun part of life. And then in terms of the Joyspan book, it is sold everywhere. So if you want to support your local bookstore, you can ask for it there and they'll get it. Of course, you can get it on Amazon. You can also ask at your local library. And if they don't have it, they'll order it. You can listen to it on Audible. And I did do the reading. So I can't listen to it, but I hear other people can.
That is very funny. Well, coming from someone,
and I'm like, oh gosh,
I know.
that's very funny to say. That's incredible.
Embrace your joy span, Dr. Kerry.
Embrace your voice span.
my voice span. I'm still working on my voice span.
You got this. You got this. Amazing.
So I did want to ask you, because my mother-in-law is 95, my wife and I moved in with her. And we've been doing, I guess, you're giving me so many great ideas in your book, but like we joined a book club with her. And she and I take a walk every night and we watch TV together. We have breakfast in the morning together. And so I just feel so inspired by, well, not only your mom, but this book. I just feel like I'm going to have a bunch. Sorry, Mary, I know you watch our podcast, but I'm going to come with a ton more ideas for us to do.
That's beautiful.
I'm delighted. And also, speaking of your mother who is on hospice, and that's such a unique stage of life. And one thing, if you're probably already doing, but if you're not, music can be such a good part of the journey. And what we find is that emotionally salient memories are stored in a different part of the brain. So if we can find emotionally salient music, then a lot of times it can reach people even when other things aren't able to reach them. And so I know it's emotional, but can be so beautiful to like really think of, okay, this song was something and I'm going to play it. And if the person can talk, great. But if they can't, it really is a way to continue to reach all the way to the end.
Thank you for that. I really needed to hear that. That is going to be very helpful. And I'm a singer and I used to sing to her and I still do sometimes. She doesn't have the same tolerance in a level, but on some level, but I'm going to try that. I had actually a question I wanted to ask too, which was, what is your advice for people's like brain health?
What the literature shows is that we're lucky because these things all go in the same direction. So the things that make you live longer or live healthier or have more joy, it's all the same direction. So our brains really benefit from exercise. They really benefit from real food, from sleep. Sleep is the time that our brain cleans itself. Really benefits from social connection, really benefits from doing hard things. So it doesn't necessarily have to be puzzles, but just like, oh, let me try to figure this out on the computer without the podcast. That's a good thing for our brains. So they say that 40% of cases of dementia internationally would be eliminated if we were to attend to these more basic, everyday kinds of lifestyle changes. And I think that's really encouraging because that's millions of people. And Claire, do you have things to add? Because I so respect your holistic view on it.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. And it is, I think, encouraging that it is the little things. And I think a lot of people these days are trying to find the supplement, the NAD injection, the thing that is going to, but if you don't have the foundation of these little things, then any supplement or anything you do is not really going to work.
And it's not the kiss of death. Like if you have cognitive impairment, it doesn't mean that's it, life's over, I'm not of value, right? So I have a lot of patients who are cultivating this inner self that is not just cognitive. And so I have a patient now, she's had Alzheimer's disease for 7 years and she has absolutely long joy span. And her gratitude is like what she is noticing. And I see her every Tuesday and my life is utterly enriched by her. Whereas some people think, oh, if I get cognitive impairment, that also is a switch to think like, good news is we're not just our brains. So if our brains change, maybe we're going to be more into our soul and we can make that a good thing.
Love that.
I have one last question. So, Claire, what's going on with the brain tumor? How are you?
Yes. I am doing really well. So I just found out that it is not growing I just got another MRI. So I'm so grateful so I saw multiple neurosurgeons. One of them said, I think we should probably do surgery and get it out. And I have to relearn how to walk. There's a 30% chance I would go deaf. And then I went to another one and she said, look, sometimes there's a small percentage of these tumors, like they will not grow. So let's wait. And so I'm so grateful I waited because it is not growing right now. So I am all good. And I am just started my second year of naturopathic medical school. And yeah, I'm just happy and stable.
Fantastic. That's great news. Hooray. That's a celebration. Claire, before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to share? A piece of insight, advice, or an encouragement, something that you could, might help our listeners live with more resiliency, joy, or purpose?
That's a beautiful question. I think to wrap this up, I would like to bring it back to my diagnosis story. And I would say the biggest lesson that I learned there was something that appeared so bad on the outside of getting a brain tumor diagnosis and not being able to go to medical school actually was the best thing that could have happened to me because it put me on the path I was supposed to be on. And I feel like when we're able to remember that we are nature and that nature has floods and lightning and rain and also has rainbows and sunshine. And when we remember that these ebbs and flows are natural and that we are not separate from nature, we are part of it. I feel like we are able to reconnect with our truth and live in the rhythm of the planet and know that we can just move from fear and scarcity into trust and abundance, and know that real joy, I don't think, is something that you can manufacture. It's not external. It is something that's remembered. It's inside of you. And even at the worst times of your life, you can find that within you. And I think when you slow down, put your feet on the earth and listen, really listen to what your body and your heart and the natural world are trying to tell you, you can begin to see that your purpose is not something that you have to chase. It is something that will unfold naturally through you when you're aligned.
Wow, that's I love the embracing the ebbs and flows. I just think that's so powerful. So Dr. Kerry, any final thoughts on anything we haven't covered that you feel would be helpful or important for our audience to know?
Well, I wanted to thank you for this opportunity to have this time with my daughter, and I am amazed and encouraged and inspired, and I'm grateful to both of you for this opportunity and for sharing through all your episodes all of these amazing people, because really what I've learned is that we're all amazing people, and we love to hear each other's stories because of that.
Yes, to that. Yes. Absolutely. Thank you for saying that. You know, it's true. And I think that's what really brought us to wanting to make this podcast. Is there are so many incredible people out there that we don't hear from, and we want to hear from those people. And you are two crazy, amazing people. So we're so happy to be here. Thank you both with you, and share your stories with our audience. We want to thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, your expertise, your wisdom, your stories, your hearts with us. So it's just all really a reminder that vitality, compassion, joy, they're all things that we can cultivate at any age. Like you said, we can do this. And no matter what just happened. So Dr. Kerry and the future Dr. Claire, you both are indeed crazy amazing.
Today's episode of the Crazy Amazing Humans podcast is brought to you via Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. All episodes are free, so make sure and subscribe today.
All right, that's our show. We want to give a big thank you to our guests, Dr. Kerry Burnight and Claire Burnight. I mean, so much strikes me from our conversation, but this whole idea of Joyspan, it isn't really about adding years to our lives. It's about adding life to our years. How'd you like that? Do you like how I did that? Mm-hmm. And that's what.
That's awesome.
Thank you, Jefferson. And that's whether we're 20 or 50 or 90, it doesn't matter. So if today's episode moved you, dear audience, because we don't want to leave you out, or you think it could inspire someone else, be a crazy, amazing human and spread the word.
Yes, please. And don't forget to subscribe to the Crazy Amazing Humans podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also watch us on our Crazy Amazing Humans YouTube channel. Leave us a comment, hit that like button, share your thoughts. We love hearing from you.
That's true. And of course, the biggest thank you goes to you, our incredible, crazy, amazing humans community. Your support means the world to us, as you know. So remember, every small act of ordinary kindness can spark extraordinary change. You have the power to do that, and we do it one person at a time.
Well said. And with that in mind, to all of you listening, think about one small habit, mindset shift, or act of compassion that you can add today that will expand your own joy span. I'm Jefferson Denim.
And I'm Katrina Carlson. Thanks for being part of our Crazy Amazing Humans family. Stay healthy, stay connected, and we'll see you next time right here on the Crazy Amazing Humans podcast.
I want you to feel, I want you to feel something crazy, crazy, amazing.
If you have any questions or comments about today's episode, please make sure to write us at crazyamazinghumans@gmail.com.